Hey guys, tonight we leave the cities and the settlements behind. We're not visiting a place on a map, contained by walls or defined by a river. No, tonight we are visiting a path, a long, winding, treacherous ribbon of dust and danger that connected empires, and in doing so, stitched together the known world. So, you've decided you want to be a merchant prince. You've heard the stories, haven't you? The whispers of untold riches, of exotic spices that perfume the air, of fabrics so fine they flow like water. It all sounds so romantic. An adventure. You and I know better, don't we? Let's forget the romantic tales. Forget the stories of Marco Polo, cushioned by the wealth of his family. Your journey will not be like that. We are going on a journey that was less an adventure and more a slow-motion, year-long gamble with death. Tonight, you are a caravan trader, and you are about to stake your life, your fortune, and what little remains of your sanity on the most famous trade route in history. But here is the first secret, the one they don't tell you in the stories. The Silk Road was never a road. There are no signposts, no friendly inns, no paved stones. It was, and is, 1,000 miles of brutal, beautiful, and profoundly unforgiving wilderness before you load your camel, before you take that first fateful step into the unknown. Take a quiet moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly appreciate these journeys into the silent past. It helps these forgotten stories find their way to others, listening in the dark. And as you settle in, let me know in the comments, what is the most desolate, empty landscape you have ever seen? A vast desert, a frozen tundra, an endless ocean at twilight. Hold that image in your mind. Feel its emptiness. Because tonight, we are about to journey into a place that makes it look like a well-tended garden. Now, dim the lights. Let the world outside your window fade away. The caravan is waiting. And the desert is always watching. But your journey doesn't begin in the dust. It doesn't begin with the first step into that wilderness. No, it begins somewhere much quieter and far more terrifying. It begins in your own home, with a choice that will either make you a legend or a sun-bleached skeleton that will serve as a landmark for the next man foolish enough to follow. The journey does not begin on the road. Let's be clear about that. It begins in the quiet of your own home, in the dead of night, with a decision that feels like swallowing stones. It is the decision to erase your entire life for the faint, shimmering promise of a new one. You see, you are not a wealthy merchant, born to this trade, your path paved with your father's gold. No, you and I know better. You are a man of the land, a man with a small inheritance, a family farm that has been your whole world. You know the smell of its soil after a rainstorm. You know the particular way the third step on the stairs creaks. This is your history. And you have heard the stories, the whispers in the marketplace of men who have returned from the east, their camels laden not just with silk, but with gold, with futures so bright they seem like myths, and a seed of desperate, dangerous ambition has taken root in your soul. So you do the unthinkable. You sell it all. The small plot of land your father worked, the one you know by the calluses on your own hands, the modest house with the door that always sticks in the winter. You sell your past, piece by piece, until all you have left is a heavy pouch of silver coins and the hollow, echoing feeling of everything you have ever known being gone. The weight of this decision is immense. It sits in your chest like a physical object. If you succeed, you will return a king, able to buy back everything you lost, and more. If you fail, if you are robbed, if you sicken, if you die in the endless wastes, you have not just condemned yourself, you have condemned your family to utter destitution. Your name will become a curse, a cautionary tale whispered by the fire. This is the gamble you have chosen to make, a fortune in silk or a coffin of wood. There is no in-between. With your fortune converted into a single heavy pouch, you make your way to the marketplace, not to the food stalls, but to the closely guarded warehouses where the true wealth of the world is traded. And there you see it for the first time, the silk. It is not just cloth. It is like nothing you have ever touched. You run your rough, calloused farmer's fingers over a bolt of it, and it feels cool and impossibly smooth, like running water. It shimmers in the dim light of the warehouse, its colors so deep and vibrant they seem alive. The merchant unfurls it, and it flows like a captured river. This is what empires go to war for. This is what men cross deserts to find. The faint, sharp scent of mulberry leaves and exotic dyes hangs in the air. You negotiate, your voice tight with anxiety. You are a novice in a world of sharks, and you can feel their eyes on you. You are almost certainly being cheated, but you have no choice. You hand over almost everything you have, and in return, you are given your new life, packed into several large, tightly wrapped bales. This fragile, beautiful substance is now your entire world. It is your hope, your dream, and the heavy, terrifying weight of your family's future. But you cannot make this journey alone. To attempt it would be suicide. You must join a caravan. You seek out the caravan master, the Akasalan. He is a man whose face is a roadmap of desert winds and hard sun, his eyes narrowed to permanent, watchful slits. He is the absolute ruler of the road. His authority is unquestioned. His roots are a closely guarded secret. You do not ask where you are going, you simply follow. You pay him a portion of your remaining silver for a place in his caravan. It is not a negotiation, it is a tribute. He looks at you, a man with soft hands and a nervous gaze, and you can see the calculation in his eyes. Another lamb, heading for the slaughter. He takes your money, and your name is entered into a ledger. You are now part of his moving city, a temporary citizen in his kingdom of dust. There is one final, grim transaction to be made. Protection. You need guards. So you make your way to the part of the city where the mercenaries gather, their faces hard, their eyes empty. These are men who live by the sword, their loyalty for sale to the highest bidder, a charming business model. You hire 2 of them. You look at their calloused hands, hands that rest too easily on the hilts of their swords, and you know, with a cold, sinking certainty, that you are not just paying for their protection from bandits. You are paying them not to rob you themselves. The money you give them is a preventative measure against their own ambition. You are hiring wolves to guard the sheep. And so your preparations are complete. You have traded your past for a fortune in silk. You have entrusted your life to a master whose ways are a mystery. And you have paid for a loyalty so fragile it could be broken by a single, desperate thought. The caravan assembles in the pre-dawn gloom, a chaotic mass of men and animals, of sounds and smells. You are no longer a farmer, a son, a man from a small village. You are just one more shadow in this river of strangers. And you find your place in that river, a single, anonymous drop flowing into the great, thirsty unknown. The caravan assembles in the pre-dawn gloom, a chaotic, sprawling beast of men and animals, slowly stirring to life. And as you find your place within it, you realize with a sinking heart that you have not joined a group of fellow travelers. No, You have been absorbed into a living organism, a chaotic, moving city, preparing for its slow, deliberate journey into the great unknown. The first thing that hits you is the sound. It is not one sound, but 1,000, all competing for dominance in the cool morning air. It is the deep, groaning complaint of hundreds of camels, forced to their knees to be loaded with cargo. It is the frantic, high-pitched bleating of sheep and goats, brought along as a moving and very vocal food supply. And over it all, a constant, deafening metallic symphony, the sound of the camel bells. Every animal wears them, a clanging, clattering, hypnotic jingle that will become the inescapable soundtrack to your life for the next year. It is a sound that will echo in your dreams, long after the journey is over, a maddening, beautiful, constant reminder of where you are. Then there is the sound of the men. It is a river of languages, a torrent of voices that you do not understand. You hear the guttural tones of Sogdian merchants, the lyrical flow of Persian, the sharp, clipped sounds of Chinese traders from the Far East. Men are shouting, arguing, negotiating, praying. It is the sound of a world colliding, a temporary, chaotic babble of commerce and desperation. And the smell. Oh, the smell is as overwhelming as the noise. It is the thick, musky, animal scent of camels and unwashed bodies. A perfume that clings to the hot, dry air. It is the sharp, exotic scent of the spices being loaded onto other camels. Cinnamon, pepper, cloves. A ghostly promise of the wealth you are all chasing. And beneath it all, the simple, dusty smell of the earth, kicked up into a permanent, choking cloud by 1,000 restless feet. This is your new atmosphere. Welcome. Let me show you your place in this dusty kingdom. You quickly learn that this moving city has a rigid, unspoken social structure, a hierarchy, and you, my friend, are not at the top. You see the wealthy merchants, the men who own dozens of camels and command a small army of private guards. They take their place at the front of the caravan, the safest, least dusty position. They are the nobility here. And then there is you, a small-time trader, a novice with a single camel and 2 hired guards of deeply questionable loyalty. Your place is in the middle of the caravan, the dusty, chaotic, and dangerously vulnerable middle. You are surrounded on all sides by strangers, a nameless face in a sea of anonymous, striving humanity. And here, in this river of strangers, you learn the first and most important rule of the Silk Road. Trust no one. Your paranoia begins as a small, quiet hum of anxiety, but it quickly grows into a constant, watchful obsession. Your bales of silk, your entire fortune, are strapped to the back of your camel, and you watch them. You watch them with an intensity that borders on madness. When the caravan stops for a rest, you do not wander far. You sit with your back to your cargo, your eyes scanning the faces around you. Every person in this caravan is your fellow traveler, your temporary brother in this shared ordeal, and every single one of them is also your primary competitor and a potential thief. The man who shares his fire with you at night, who offers you a piece of his dried meat with a warm smile. He is also the man who is quietly calculating the weight of your silk, the quality of your guards, and the best time to slit your throat and disappear into the desert. A charming thought to carry with you to bed. So you sleep, but you do not rest. You lie down with your small pouch of remaining silver tied securely to your body. You wrap your arm through the ropes that bind your cargo, and you sleep with your hand resting on the hilt of your dagger. Every rustle of a tent flap, every muffled footstep in the night sends a jolt of ice-cold adrenaline through you. You wake a dozen times, your heart pounding, to the simple sound of a camel shifting its weight. You begin to learn the unspoken laws of this world, the subtle, intricate rituals of survival. You learn that to stare too long at another man's goods is a grave insult, an open declaration of covetousness. You learn the proper etiquette for sharing a fire, the precise way to accept a cup of tea without seeming too eager or too suspicious. You learn how to negotiate for water at a crowded well, a delicate dance of diplomacy where a single wrong word could lead to a knife fight. You learn to read faces, to see the flicker of desperation in a man's eyes, the subtle shift in his posture that tells you he is sizing you up. You become a student of human nature in its most raw and unveiled form. This is a world stripped down to its essentials: greed, fear, and the relentless, grinding will to survive. You are in a river of strangers, and you are all flowing in the same direction, towards a distant, uncertain promise of wealth. But even this river must eventually find a shore, however temporary. The veteran traders, the ones with faces like cracked leather, they whisper of a place ahead, a city of walls and water, a brief, fragile sanctuary where you can catch your breath before the true test begins. Your last taste of the green world before you step into the real emptiness. After weeks of dust, of wind, of the endless swaying rhythm of the caravan, you see it on the horizon. At first, it is just a dark smudge, a wavering line in the heat haze. But as you draw closer, day by day, it solidifies. It becomes walls, towers, a city. It is an oasis of civilization in an ocean of emptiness. A place like Samarkand or Bukhara. A name that has been a whispered promise around the campfire for a month. And as the caravan funnels through its massive sun-baked gates, a wave of profound, dizzying relief washes over you. You have made it. You are safe. Well, safer anyway. Come, let's walk down these streets together. After the profound silence of the open road, the noise of the city is a physical blow. It is a chaotic symphony of shouting merchants, braying donkeys, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, and the murmur of 1,000 different conversations in 12 different tongues. The air, which for weeks has smelled only of dust and camel, is now thick with 1,000 new scents: roasting meat, fragrant spices, blooming flowers from a hidden courtyard, and the ever-present underlying smell of sewage and humanity, packed far too tightly together. For the first time in weeks, you have a solid roof over your head. You find a room in a crowded inn, a small, dark space that feels, to you, like a palace. You can wash the layers of dust from your skin. You can eat a meal that isn't dried meat and stale, gritty bread. You eat a fresh melon, and its cool, sweet juice is the most exquisite thing you have ever tasted. For a few days, you allow yourself to forget what lies ahead. You allow yourself to feel human again. You feel the profound, almost forgotten luxury of safety, of solid walls, a welcome claustrophobia. But this is not a vacation, my friend. It is a preparation. This city is the last outpost of the green world. It is your final chance to gather what you need to survive the true wilderness that lies beyond. And the process is a frantic, expensive, and nerve-shredding race against time. You go to the market, but you are not shopping for pleasure. You are making a series of life or death calculations. You haggle for new water skins, inspecting the leather for any tiny flaw, any weak seam that might betray you in the desert. A leaking water skin is not an inconvenience, it is a death sentence. You buy sacks of grain, dried meat, and hard, twice-baked bread, trying to calculate the precise amount needed for a journey of unknown length. Too little, and you starve. Too much, and you overburden your camel, risking its collapse in the mountains. Every purchase is a gamble. Every coin you spend is a bet you are placing on your own survival. A lovely, relaxing holiday. And as the day fades, you find yourself in a tea house, a dark, smoky room filled with the quiet, watchful figures of other travelers. This is the rumour mill. This is where the stories are told. You sit in a corner, sipping your hot, bitter tea, and you listen. The men who speak are veterans of the road. Their faces are like cracked leather. Their eyes hold a permanent haunted squint. And they speak in low, hushed tones, not of riches and glory, but of horrors. They talk of a sandstorm in the Taklamakan that came without warning, a moving wall of blackness that buried an entire caravan, leaving nothing behind but a strange, temporary range of new dunes. They whisper of the ghosts of the high passes in the Pamirs, wailing spirits that lure men off the narrow, icy paths and into the abyss. They speak of a notorious bandit chief, a man who leaves one survivor from every caravan he attacks. A man with no tongue, forced to walk back to the last city to spread the story of his cruelty with his terrified eyes alone. You listen to these stories, and the hot tea in your cup feels cold in your stomach. This is not idle gossip. This is a travel advisory from hell. And you know, with a chilling certainty, that these men are not exaggerating. This is your last chance. You could sell your silk here for a small profit. You could cut your losses and take the long road home. You could live. But you and I both know you won't. You have come too far. You have sacrificed too much. There is no turning back now. And so, the morning comes when the caravan master gives the order to depart. You lead your freshly supplied camel, its belly full of fodder, its back laden with your entire world, back out into the dusty field. The caravan reassembles, the same chaotic symphony of bells and shouts. You take your place in the dusty middle. The great gates of the city are open before you. You take one last look at the green trees of the oasis, the solid, reassuring presence of the walls, the smoke rising from 1,000 cooking fires. You try to memorize the feeling of it, the last taste of green. And then you pass through the gates. You do not look back. You hear the deep, groaning sound of the massive wooden doors swinging shut behind you. It is a sound of profound, heart-stopping finality. The world of men, of cities, of safety is now behind you. Ahead of you lies the Taklamakan, the sea of death. And as you step out into that vast, sun-bleached emptiness, you realize the environment itself is about to become your primary and most malevolent enemy. You are now in the Taklamakan. The name is a whisper on the wind, a warning spoken in the tea houses, a curse. In the local tongue it means, go in and you will not come out. The place of no return. It is not a desert, my friend. It is an ocean of sand, and you are a tiny, insignificant vessel sailing slowly across its silent, unforgiving waves. Here, you discover that the company of strangers was a luxury. Now, your only companion is the sun, and it is not your friend. The heat begins at dawn, a gentle, deceptive warmth that quickly becomes a relentless, oppressive force. By midday, the sun is a white, featureless eye in a bleached-out sky. The air does not move. It is a thick, heavy blanket of heat that smothers you. The sand reflects the sun's glare with a blinding intensity, and you are forced to squint your eyes to narrow, painful slits. You feel the moisture being baked out of your body, drop by precious drop. Your skin becomes dry, cracked, and burned. Your sweat evaporates the instant it forms, leaving a salty, white crust on your skin. You are being slowly mummified while still alive. And then, as the sun finally dips below the horizon in a blaze of impossible orange and purple, the heat vanishes. It does not fade gently. It is stolen from the world in an instant. And it is replaced by a cold so profound, so absolute, that it feels like the heat was just a fever dream. The temperature plummets, and the sand that burned your feet just hours ago now leaches the warmth from your body with a predatory hunger. You huddle in your thin wool cloak, a wonderfully poor choice of fabric for the desert, your teeth chattering, a deep, shivering cold that seems to come from inside your own bones. You are trapped in a world of violent, brutal extremes. You are either being cooked or you are being frozen. There is no middle ground. There is no comfort. But the cold is not your greatest enemy. Thirst is. You begin to ration your water with a miserly, obsessive precision. You allow yourself only a few small sips a day, a mouthful of the lukewarm, leathery-tasting water from your skins. It is never, ever enough. The thirst is a constant physical presence. It begins as a simple dryness in your mouth, a thickness on your tongue. Then your lips begin to crack and bleed. Your throat feels like it is coated in dust. You stop urinating, and when you finally do, it is a dark, thick, brownish trickle that burns. This is the first sign that your body is beginning to consume itself. The obsession with water becomes all-consuming. It is your every waking thought and the subject of your feverish, taunting dreams. You think of rivers, of rain, of a simple, clean cup of cool water with a desperation that is a form of madness. You eye your fellow travelers' waterskins with a dark, covetous envy you are ashamed to feel. You begin to understand, on a deep, primal level, how a man could kill another for a single, precious mouthful. And then, one afternoon, you see it. A dark line on the horizon. It is not a cloud. It is a wall, a moving wall of blackness, and it is coming for you. The caravan master screams a single word, a sound of pure, primal terror. The sandstorm. The wind hits you first, a sudden, violent gale that threatens to tear the cloak from your body. And then the wall of sand is upon you. The world disappears. The sun is extinguished. You are in a roaring, howling, suffocating chaos of absolute blackness. The wind feels like a physical blow, a solid force that pushes you to your knees. The sand is not the soft sand of a beach. It is a million tiny, sharp needles, stinging your face, your hands, any exposed piece of skin until it is raw and bleeding. You pull your head covering tight, pressing a cloth over your mouth and nose, but it is a futile gesture. The sand gets in. It is in your eyes, blinding you with a gritty, burning pain. It is in your mouth, coating your tongue and teeth. It is in your lungs, and every breath you take is a painful gasp of dust and suffocation. The noise is a deafening, continuous roar, the sound of the world being torn apart. You huddle beside your terrified camel, its groans lost in the storm, and you pray. You pray that you are not buried alive. You pray that the caravan is not scattered, leaving you lost and alone when the light returns. You simply hold on, and you endure. When the storm finally passes, hours later, the world is reborn. The landscape is different. The dunes have shifted. The landmarks are gone. It is a new desert, a new hell. And how do you find your way? How do you know which direction to go in this featureless, shifting sea of sand? Let me show you the road signs. You navigate by the dead. The only reliable landmarks are the skeletons. You see them half buried in the sand, the long, arching rib cage of a camel, the white polished curve of a human skull, its empty eye sockets staring at the indifferent sky. These are the men who came before you, the men who lost their way, who ran out of water, who were caught in a storm, just like the one you just survived. This is the Silk Road. It is not paved with stones. It is paved with the bones of those who failed. And as you lead your camel past another silent, sun-bleached monument to despair, you know that the desert does not just attack your body. Soon, it will begin its assault on your mind, with tricks of the light and ghosts that whisper in the heat. The desert has taken your water, your strength, your sense of direction. And now, my friend, it comes for your mind. The physical ordeal of the journey, the heat, the cold, the thirst, is a simple, honest brutality. But the psychological horrors are something else entirely. They are subtle, insidious, and they dismantle you from the inside out, piece by piece, until you are no longer certain where the desert ends. And you begin. It starts with a trick of the light, a joke the universe plays on the desperate. Your tongue is a dry, swollen stone in your mouth. Your eyes, raw and burning from the sun's glare, scan the endless, shimmering horizon. And then you see it. At first, it is just a flicker, a brief, wavering shimmer in the heat haze. But you stare, your heart suddenly pounding with a wild, desperate hope, and the flicker becomes a line of impossible, beautiful blue. Water, a lake. The sight sends a jolt of life through your exhausted body. You cry out, pointing, your voice a dry, ragged croak. Others in the caravan see it too. A murmur of disbelief, then of joy, ripples through the weary line of travelers. The pace quickens. The camels seem to sense it, lifting their heads, their slow, plodding walk gaining a new urgency. For the first time in weeks, there is hope. Real, tangible hope. You can almost feel the cool water on your cracked lips, the life-giving liquid soothing your parched throat. But the line of blue never gets closer. You walk for an hour, your eyes fixed on it, and it remains a distant, shimmering promise. You walk for 2, and it begins to fade, to dissolve back into the heat haze from which it was born. And then, the crushing, soul-destroying realization dawns. It was never there. It is a mirage, a cruel optical illusion painted by the sun and the heat onto the canvas of your own desperation. The desert is not just empty, it is malicious. It has a sense of humor, and its jokes are always at your expense. The hope that surged through you just a few hours ago now curdles into a profound, bitter despair that is almost worse than the thirst itself. And with that first crack in your perception, the other ghosts begin to slip in. The sunstroke and the dehydration begin their quiet work on your brain. The world starts to unravel at the edges. You see things, shimmering figures, walking alongside the caravan, just at the edge of your vision. Are they other travelers, bandits, or are they the ghosts of the men whose bones you now use as landmarks? Here, the historical record falls silent, but the whispers of travelers like you have filled the void for centuries. You cannot be sure what is real. You start to hear things, whispers on the wind, speaking a language you almost understand. The faint, distant sound of a bell where no bell should be. You will be walking in the dead of the afternoon, and you will hear, as clear as day, a woman's laughter. You turn, but there is nothing there. Only the endless, indifferent sand. You start to question your own sanity. You know these things are not real, but they feel real. And in this vast, featureless emptiness, The line between reality and hallucination becomes a thin, wavering thread. And then there is the silence. In the city, the noise was a prison. Out here, you learn that silence can be a cage of its own. It is a profound, crushing, absolute silence, broken only by the soft, rhythmic padding of your camel's feet on the sand and the faint, dry whisper of the wind. There are no birds, no insects, no life, just the sound of your own blood pounding in your ears. The isolation is a form of torture. For weeks on end, you are surrounded by nothing but the vast, empty sky and the vast, empty earth. You feel small, insignificant, an irrelevant speck of dust in an immense cosmic void. You begin to feel as if you are the only person left in the world, as if the caravan itself is just another hallucination, a ghost train on a journey to nowhere. The silence presses in on you, a physical weight, slowly unraveling the fabric of your mind. But sometimes, the silence is broken. You will be resting at night, under a sky overflowing with cold, sharp stars, and you will begin to feel it first, more than hear it. A low, deep vibration coming up from the ground, through the sand, into your very bones. And then you hear the sound. It is a low, humming, mournful groan. A sound like a distant chant, or the deep note of a massive cello. It seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It rises and falls, a strange, unearthly music that makes the hair on your arms stand on end. These are the singing sands. The veteran traders, their faces grim in the firelight, tell you what it is. It is the sound of desert demons, the wailing of 1,000 dead travelers. They say the sound is a lure, a siren song designed to draw you off the path, to lead you into the heart of the desert where you will wander, lost, until you die. A charming bedtime story. You know, in some rational, distant part of your mind, that it must be a natural phenomenon, the sound of wind passing over the dunes, causing the grains of sand to vibrate and resonate. But in the dead of the night, in the heart of this haunted emptiness, that rational explanation feels like a thin, pathetic shield against a vast and ancient mystery. The sound does not feel natural. It feels alive. It feels intelligent. The desert is not just trying to kill you with heat and thirst. It is trying to drive you mad. It taunts you with visions of water. It whispers to you on the wind, and in the dead of night, it sings to you. And this relentless psychological assault is just a prelude to the next physical one. For beyond this sea of sand lies a wall of rock and ice. A dragon's spine of frozen mountains waiting to test what little remains of your will. You have survived the sea of death. You have walked through its heat, its cold, its thirst, its madness, and you have emerged on the other side, a gaunt, sun-blackened ghost of the man you once were. You think foolishly that the worst must be over. A charmingly optimistic thought. And then you look up and you see them. The mountains, the dragon's spine, a jagged, saw-toothed wall of rock and ice that scrapes the roof of the world. The Pamirs, the Hindu Kush, names that are whispered with the same dread as the Taklamakan. You have not escaped one hell. You have simply arrived at the gates of another, colder one. The heat of the sand is now replaced by the biting cold of the ice. The journey upwards begins slowly. The gentle slopes become steep, rocky inclines. The air, which in the desert was thick and heavy, now begins to thin, and you feel it in your body, a strange, creeping sickness you have never known before. It starts with a dull, persistent, pounding headache, a hammer beating a slow, relentless rhythm inside your skull. A wave of nausea washes over you, and your stomach churns with a sickness that has nothing to do with bad food or water. And then you cannot breathe. Every step is an agonizing effort. You gasp for air, but your lungs feel as if they are only half filling. You are breathing a thin, insubstantial ghost of air, and it offers no relief, no satisfaction. This is altitude sickness, the mountain poison. You see it in the other travelers, their faces pale and drawn, their movements slow and clumsy. And you see it in the animals. The camels, creatures of the flat, sandy wastes, struggle mightily here. They groan, they stumble, their great lungs heaving for an oxygen that is not there. Some collapse, their legs giving way, and they cannot be made to stand again. You must leave them where they fall, a grim, new kind of skeleton for this new, vertical road, a fresh landmark for the next poor soul. And then you reach the ledges. The path is no longer a path. It is a narrow, icy ribbon of rock, carved into the sheer face of a cliff. It is barely wide enough for a single camel. On one side is a solid wall of unforgiving rock. On the other is nothing. A dizzying, terrifying 1,000-foot drop into a misty abyss. Let's walk this part together. You lead your camel, your heart a cold, tight knot in your chest. You do not look down. You and I both know that would be a terrible mistake. You focus only on the few feet of treacherous ground in front of you. Every step is a gamble. The wind howls through the passes, a physical force that threatens to tear you from your precarious perch. A loose stone, a patch of ice, a sudden, panicked movement from your camel. Any of these things would mean a swift, silent, and absolute end. You can feel the sweat trickling down your back, instantly turning to ice in the frigid air. This is not a journey. It is a tightrope walk over the void. And the mountains are not silent. They are alive. You hear a low, deep, rumbling sound, a sound that seems to come from the very bones of the earth. It is not thunder. It is the sound of an avalanche. You look up at the vast, snow-covered peaks that tower over you, and you know that at any moment, a river of snow and rock could come crashing down, a white, roaring wave of death that would sweep your entire caravan into oblivion in a matter of seconds. There is no defense. There is no escape. There is only the hope that the mountain gods are in a merciful mood today. And the cold is a new kind of enemy. You are not prepared for this. Your thin desert clothing, which was a furnace just a few weeks ago, is now a pathetic, useless shield against a cold that feels like it has teeth. It bites at your fingers, your toes, your nose, your ears. You see men, their faces wrapped in rags, their hands so numb they can barely hold the reins of their animals. You begin to see the first signs of frostbite, fingers and toes turning a pale, waxy, dead-looking white, then black. You see men who will survive this journey, but will leave pieces of themselves behind, a permanent, physical reminder of the price of the dragon's spine. You huddle around a small, smoky fire at night, made from the dry, sparse scrub you can find. But the fire offers little warmth against the vast, cosmic cold of the high altitudes. The stars here are different. They are hard, sharp, and impossibly bright in the thin, clean air. They do not look like friendly, twinkling lights. They look like chips of ice, scattered across a black, unforgiving void. You have survived the fire of the desert. Now, you must survive the ice of the mountains. But the elements, you are beginning to learn, are not the only predators on this road. Down in the valleys, where the air is thick enough to breathe again, there are other dangers waiting. The two-legged kind, the company of wolves. You have come down from the dragon's spine, your body battered, your spirit frozen, but you are alive. The caravan descends back into the rolling, dusty plains. The air grows thick and warm again, and you allow yourself a small, foolish flicker of hope. You have survived the desert. You have survived the mountains. Surely the worst is over. That's adorable. Because you and I know that the natural world, in all its casual cruelty, is not your only enemy. The Silk Road is a river of wealth, flowing through a wilderness of poverty. And where there is wealth, there are always predators. The two-legged kind. Welcome to the company of wolves. It happens without warning. One afternoon, as the caravan plods wearily through a wide, open plain, a scout from the front comes galloping back, his face a mask of pale terror. He is screaming a single word, a word that rips through the hypnotic jingle of the camel bells. And then you see them. On the horizon, a line of dark figures. At first, they are just specks, but they grow with a terrifying, unnatural speed. They are horsemen, nomadic raiders, the wolves of the steppe. Panic erupts in the caravan. The slow, lulling rhythm of the journey is shattered. Men are shouting, camels are groaning. The air is thick with a sudden, sharp, metallic taste of fear. The caravan master is yelling orders, trying to form the camels into a defensive circle. A lovely idea, about an hour too late. They are upon you. They do not ride in neat, orderly lines like a Roman legion. They are a swirling, chaotic, fluid mass of motion. They are masters of the horse, seeming to be a part of the animal itself, moving with a speed and grace that feels supernatural. And they are masters of the composite bow. A high, whistling sound fills the air, and a moment later, arrows rain down upon the caravan, a deadly, silent storm. You hear the screams of men, the wet thud of arrows sinking into flesh, and the thick hides of the camels. Your hired guards, the men you paid to protect you, finally earn their silver. They draw their swords and form a small, desperate circle around you and your cargo. They look very brave. For about 30 seconds. They are foot soldiers, and they are facing a whirlwind. The horsemen do not engage in hand-to-hand combat. They are far too smart for that. They circle, they wheel, they charge and retreat, firing arrows with a chilling, deadly accuracy. They are untouchable. You crouch behind your camel, your heart a frantic, hammering drum in your chest. You have a dagger, but it feels like a child's toy in the face of this storm. All you can do is hide and pray that the arrow that finds you is a quick one. Or perhaps the attack comes differently. Perhaps it is more intimate. You are leading your camel through a narrow, rocky canyon, the high walls pressing in on either side. A perfect place for an ambush. The air is still, too still. The only sound is the echo of the camel bells, a sound that now seems less like a rhythm and more like a funeral dirge. And then a shadow falls over you. You look up. The cliffs above you are lined with men, bandits. They do not need horses. They have the high ground. The first volley of arrows is devastating, coming from directly above, bypassing the makeshift defenses of the caravan. And then they begin to roll boulders down the steep slopes, huge rocks that crash into the caravan with the force of a catapult, smashing camels, cargo, and men into a bloody, unrecognizable pulp. And in that moment of pure chaotic terror, you must make a choice that will define the rest of your life, however short it may be. Do you fight? Do you draw your pathetic little dagger and make a heroic stand? To do so is almost certain death. You are a merchant, my friend, not a soldier. Do you trust your hired guards to win this battle? You look at their faces, and you see not courage, but the same stark terror that you feel. They are mercenaries. They are paid to fight, not to die for a hopeless cause? Or do you surrender? Do you drop your weapon, raise your hands, and give them what they want? Your silk, your fortune, your entire world, in the hope, the faint, desperate hope, that they will be satisfied with your goods and spare your life. Let's say you choose to live. You throw your dagger to the ground. The bandits swarm the caravan, their work swift and efficient. They cut the ropes of your bales, their rough hands tearing at the precious silk. They strip you of your money pouch, your boots, even the decent cloak you bought in the last oasis town. They take everything, and then they are gone, as quickly as they appeared. Silence descends upon the canyon, a silence that is even more profound, more terrible than the chaos that came before it. You are left in the aftermath. The dead and the dying lie among the splintered remains of the caravan. The few surviving camels wander aimlessly, their bells now a sad, lonely, mocking sound. You are alive, but you have lost everything. You are now a beggar, a man with nothing but the ragged clothes on his back, stranded in the middle of a vast, unforgiving wilderness. Your journey is over. Your dream is dead. All that is left is the slow, humiliating, and uncertain walk towards the next sign of life. You must now rely on the pity of others, on the scraps of food from the next caravan that passes, to survive. You have faced the wolves, and they have left you with nothing but your life. And as you begin the long, lonely walk, you are not entirely sure if that was an act of mercy. All you know is that you crave one thing above all else: a wall, a gate, a place where the wolves cannot get you. A gilded cage, perhaps, but a cage all the same. You have been walking for weeks through an empty, silent hell. You are tired, you are hungry, and your nerves are shredded raw from the constant watchful paranoia. And then, one day, you see it. A low, mud brick wall on the horizon. A building, a caravanserai. It is a fortified roadside inn, a sanctuary for travelers on the Silk Road. It is a promise of safety, of rest, of a hot meal. And as you stumble through its gates, leaving the vast, terrifying emptiness of the wilderness behind you, a wave of profound, exhausted relief washes over you. You are safe. You have found a refuge. But you and I both know that nothing on this road is ever that simple. You soon discover that this is not a refuge. It is just a different kind of trap, a gilded cage. After weeks of profound silence, the sensory overload of the caravanserai is a physical blow. The noise is a chaotic, overwhelming roar. It is the sound of hundreds of people packed into a confined space. You hear a dozen different languages, a babble of shouting, laughing, arguing voices. It is the sound of merchants haggling, of children crying, of camels groaning in the crowded central courtyard. The smell is just as intense. For the first time in months, you smell cooking food, the rich, fragrant scent of roasting meat and spices. It is a smell so intoxicating, it makes your empty stomach ache with a fierce, desperate longing. But that beautiful smell is mixed with others. It is mixed with the thick, cloying smell of animal dung from the courtyard, the sharp, ammoniac stench of overflowing latrines, and the sour, unwashed scent of hundreds of human bodies pressed together in the close, stagnant air. And beneath it all, you can smell sickness. These inns, you see, are not sanctuaries of health. They are breeding grounds for disease. The water comes from a single, communal well, a well that is almost certainly contaminated by the nearby latrines and the waste of the animals. This is where the bloody flux, dysentery, thrives. It can sweep through a crowded caravanserai like a fire, leaving a trail of death in its wake. The sleeping quarters are not private rooms. That would be a ridiculous luxury. They are large communal halls where you are given a small patch of floor to unroll your sleeping mat. You are packed in with dozens of other travelers, their coughs and snores filling the night. The air is thick with fleas and lice, and you know, as you lie there, that the man sleeping next to you might be carrying the plague. The Silk Road is not just a highway for goods, it is a highway for pestilence, and these inns are its major interchanges. A lovely thought to drift off to sleep with, but the dangers are not all invisible. The caravanserai is a world of cheats, of spies, of predators who do not need a sword to rob you. You go to buy a bowl of hot soup, a simple, profound luxury, but you must negotiate for it with an innkeeper whose eyes are as hard and calculating as any bandit's. He knows you are desperate. He knows you have no other options. And he will charge you an exorbitant price, knowing you have no choice but to pay. You sit by the fire, trying to enjoy the fleeting warmth, but you cannot relax. You are aware that the man sitting next to you, the one making friendly conversation, might be a spy. He might be listening, trying to learn what you are carrying, how many guards you have, where you are going. He might be an agent for a local warlord, or for the very bandit gang that is waiting for you in the next mountain pass. You must be constantly on your guard. Every friendly question could be an interrogation. Every shared cup of tea could be a test. And yet, despite the noise, the filth, the disease, the paranoia, there is comfort here. As you sit by the fire, a bowl of hot, greasy, overpriced soup in your hands, you feel a profound sense of relief that is almost a form of joy. For the first time in months, there is a solid wall between you and the howling emptiness of the wilderness. You are warm. You are, for the moment, safe from sandstorms and bandits. You are surrounded by humanity in all its chaotic, messy, and dangerous glory. You hear stories. You see new faces. You are reminded that there is a world beyond the endless, monotonous cycle of walking and surviving. It is a fleeting, fragile comfort. You know that tomorrow morning you will have to step back out into the wilderness. You know that this place is a gilded cage, a beautiful illusion of safety. But tonight, it is enough. Tonight, a bowl of hot soup and a wall to lean against feels like the greatest luxury in the world. And it is a luxury you must pay for, not just with coin, but by navigating the slow, grinding threat of the men with ledgers and official seals, the ones who practice a far more civilized form of theft. You have learned to fear the sudden violence of the bandit attack, the quick, brutal honesty of the sword. But you soon learn that there is another kind of predator on the Silk Road, a predator who is slower, quieter, and far more insidious. He does not wear a mask or carry a bow. He carries a ledger and a self-satisfied bureaucratic smile. He is the tax collector, the official, and he will bleed you just as surely as any bandit, only he will do it with paperwork and a maddening, leisurely pace. Every time the caravan crosses an invisible line in the dust, the border of a new kingdom, the territory of a new warlord, the domain of a new petty chieftain, you must stop. A makeshift checkpoint, perhaps just a rope stretched across the path, and a few bored-looking soldiers, brings the entire caravan to a halt. And you must pay the toll. The process is a masterclass in arbitrary power. There is no fixed rate. There is no written law. The tax is whatever the local official decides it is in that moment. He walks slowly along the line of merchants, his eyes scanning your cargo, your clothes, your camel. He is not assessing the value of your goods. He is assessing the depth of your desperation. He looks at your tired, sun-baked face. He sees the anxiety in your eyes. He knows you have come too far to turn back. He knows you have no choice but to pay. And so, he names a price, an exorbitant price, a price that is not a tax. It is a form of legalized extortion. You try to haggle to protest. A terrible idea. You have no leverage. You are a foreigner here. You have no rights. And the official knows it. He simply shrugs, a gesture of profound, bureaucratic indifference. The price is the price. Pay it, or your journey ends here. A simple business proposition. And then comes the inspection. Your precious bales of silk, which you have guarded with your life for months, must be unloaded from your camel. The official's men, with their rough, dirty hands, cut the ropes. They unwrap the protective layers of cloth, and they pour through the delicate, priceless fabric. They are not careful. They are looking for hidden goods, for contraband, for any excuse to levy another fine. But they are also demonstrating their power. They are showing you that even your most precious possession is subject to their whim. There is always the risk of damage. A rough hand can snag the delicate threads. A dirty boot can stain the priceless fabric. And then the official might shake his head with a look of feigned disappointment. This bolt of silk, he will say, is of inferior quality. It is an insult to the ruler of this land. And so he must confiscate it, as a special levy, of course, for the good of the kingdom. You watch, your heart a cold, tight knot of helpless rage, as a portion of your fortune is simply taken from you. And there is nothing you can do. To argue is to risk something far worse than the loss of your goods. If you protest too loudly, if you question the official's authority, you can be accused of being a spy, a smuggler, a troublemaker. And the punishment for that is swift and absolute. You can be thrown into a local jail, a dark, foul-smelling hole in the ground, your goods seized, your camel sold. Your journey, and likely your life, would be over, consumed not by a sandstorm or a bandit, but by a petty, greedy bureaucrat with a ledger and a title. So you pay. You watch a significant portion of your remaining silver, the silver you need to survive the rest of the journey, disappear into the official's pouch. You watch them handle your silk with a casual, insulting disrespect. And you say nothing. You bite your tongue until it bleeds. You swallow your rage. You force a polite, submissive nod. And then, when the transaction is finally complete, you are allowed to repack your goods, reload your camel, and continue on your way. This is the slow, bureaucratic bleeding of your profits. It is a death by 1,000 cuts. At every checkpoint, at every new border, you must endure this same humiliating, infuriating ritual. And with every toll you pay, you feel your dream of a fortune shrinking. You begin to understand that the bandits with their swords and arrows are, in a way, more honest. Their violence is quick, and their motives are clear. This is a different kind of violence. It is the slow, grinding, soul-crushing violence of a system that is rigged against you. And you feel a profound sense of powerlessness, a feeling that is in many ways more terrifying than the fear of a quick death. Because this is a death of the spirit, a slow erosion of your hope, one silver coin at a time. It is an attack not just on your purse, but on your will to continue. And you realize, with a chilling clarity, that the most dangerous enemies on this road are not always the ones who are trying to kill your body, but the ones who are slowly, methodically killing your dream. The ones who are inflicting a rot that no medicine can cure. because it is a rot from within. You have faced the desert, the mountains, the bandits, the taxmen. You have learned to live with a constant, watchful fear of the external world. But your greatest enemy is not out there, in the howling wind or the glint of a distant sword. No, your greatest enemy is invisible, it is silent, and it may already be inside you. It begins with a cramp, a sharp, twisting pain deep in your gut that makes you double over. You tell yourself it's just the bad water from the last caravanserai, the questionable bit of dried meat you ate last night. A simple traveler's complaint. It will pass, but it does not pass. It gets worse. The cramps become a relentless, agonizing wave of sickness. You are racked by a violent, uncontrollable diarrhea that is not just water, but blood. This is the bloody flux. Dysentery. It is the most common and most efficient killer on the Silk Road. It is a disease born of the filth you have been forced to live in, contracted from the contaminated water you have been forced to drink. A parting gift from the last gilded cage you stayed in. A burning fever takes hold of you. One moment you are shivering with a profound, bone-deep cold, wrapped in every layer of clothing you own. The next, you are burning up, your skin slick with a feverish sweat. You become incredibly weak, so weak that even lifting your head from your sleeping mat is a monumental effort. And the thirst is a special kind of torment. You crave water, but every sip you take seems to pass right through you, leaving you more dehydrated, more empty than before. There is no doctor here. There is no medicine. Your fellow travelers do not have a cure. They have folk remedies, whispered from one generation of suffering to the next. A poultice of herbs applied to your burning forehead. A bitter tea made from a dried, gnarled root. A prayer muttered over your feverish body by a man whose own hands are trembling. These are the only weapons you have against a microscopic enemy you cannot see or understand. You are fighting a ghost with whispers. You lie in your tent, your body a battlefield, and you know, with a terrifying clarity, that your survival now depends on nothing more than the brute, animal strength of your own constitution. You are utterly, completely alone in your suffering. But dysentery is not the only ghost that haunts the caravan. There is another, darker, more legendary fear: the plague. You have seen the signs of it in some of the oasis towns. The strange, unnatural silence in the marketplace. The houses marked with a crude symbol, a warning to stay away. The hurried, fearful whispers of the swellings. You have seen the swift, efficient work of the Black Death. And so, every time a fellow traveler develops a cough, a fever, you feel a jolt of ice-cold fear. You watch them. You eye them with a terrible, guilty suspicion. Is it just a common fever? Or is it the beginning? The first spark of a fire that could consume the entire caravan? Then, you see it. A man you shared a meal with just a few nights ago, now lying in his tent, delirious with fever, dark, swollen buboes appearing in his neck and groin. And you know, the plague is here. It has found its way into your moving city. A wave of quiet, desperate panic ripples through the camp. People stop talking to each other. They avoid sharing fires, food, water. The fragile, temporary bonds of community that held you all together now dissolve into a raw, primal instinct for self-preservation. Every man is now an island. Every cough, every sneeze is a potential death sentence. You watch your fellow travelers sicken and die one by one. Their bodies are wrapped in cloth and buried in shallow, unmarked graves in the sand. their journey brought to an abrupt and anonymous end. And with every body that is buried, your own sense of fatalism grows. You are in a lottery of death, and you know, with a cold, hollow certainty, that your number could be drawn at any moment. This is the psychological toll of the rot within. It is not the fear of a quick, violent death in an ambush. It is the slow, creeping, intimate fear of your own body betraying you. It is the suspicion that turns your fellow travelers from companions into potential carriers of your own doom. It is the profound, existential terror of being sick and alone, in the middle of a vast, indifferent wilderness, with no hope of a cure, and no one to comfort you in your final feverish moments. This constant threat changes you. It makes you value not just your life, but the cargo you carry, that fragile promise of a different future. It becomes more than just silk. It becomes the reason to endure this internal war, a reason to fight the rot within, even as you feel it trying to pull you down. Through all the hardships, the desert, the mountains, the bandits, the sickness, you have one constant companion, one single, all-consuming obsession that never leaves you, day or night, the silk. It is the reason you are here. It is your hope. It is your dream. And it is a crushing, psychological weight that you carry with you, every single step of this agonizing journey. This is not just cargo, my friend. It is your entire existence, wrapped in cloth and strapped to the back of a groaning camel. Your days become defined by a ritual of obsessive paranoia. Every morning, before the sun has even risen, while the air is still thin and cold, you are awake. And the first thing you do, before you even take a sip of your precious water, is go to your camel, to your bales. You run your hands over them, your fingers tracing the thick, tight ropes, checking for any sign of tampering, any cut, any fraying that might have occurred in the dark. You press your hands against the cloth wrapping, feeling for any unusual dampness, any sign that the precious fabric within might be rotting from a hidden leak in a water skin. And every night, after the caravan has settled into a weary camp, you perform the same ritual in reverse. You check the bales one last time before you allow yourself to fall into a fitful, shallow sleep. This ritual is not just a practical necessity, it is a prayer. A desperate, silent plea to the gods of the road to protect this fragile fortune you have staked your entire life on. And with this obsession, you develop new fears, fears you had never even considered before you became a man of property. You become terrified of fire. A simple campfire, which should be a source of warmth and comfort, is now a source of intense anxiety. You watch the sparks that fly up into the night sky with a hawk-like intensity. One stray ember, carried on a gust of wind, could land on your bales. And in a matter of minutes, your entire investment, your entire future, could go up in a plume of fragrant, expensive smoke. A beautiful tragedy. You become paranoid about where you camp. You try to position your camel upwind of the main fires. You eye your fellow travelers with suspicion. The man who builds his fire too large, who is careless with the flames. He is not just a fool, he is a direct threat to your existence. And then there is the temptation. The quiet, insidious whisper in the back of your mind during the darkest moments. There will be times of profound, absolute desperation. Moments when your food has run out, when your water skin is empty, when you are so weak from hunger and thirst that you can barely stand. And in those moments, a terrible, seductive thought will creep into your mind. The silk. You know that a small piece of it, just a few feet, is incredibly valuable. You could cut open one of the bales, just a small hidden slit. You could take out a small portion and trade it at the next caravanserai, or even with another, better supplied merchant in your own caravan. You could trade it for food,
for water, for immediate, life-saving survival.
It is a terrible, agonizing choice to save your life but damage your fortune, to eat today but risk the destitution of your family tomorrow. Every time you look at the bales, you feel the pull of this temptation. You run your hand over the rough cloth, and you can almost feel the smooth, cool fabric within, whispering to you. It is a constant internal battle between your immediate survival and the dream that has brought you here, because this is not just cargo. You and I know better. You are not just a delivery man. This silk is the physical embodiment of everything you have risked and everything you hope to gain. It is the memory of the farm you sold. It is the faces of your family waiting for your return. It is your one single chance to escape a life of quiet, grinding poverty. And so, its weight is far, far heavier than the pounds it measures on a scale. It is a constant, crushing responsibility. It is the first thing you think of when you wake up, and the last thing you think of before you fall asleep. You are not just carrying silk. You are carrying the hopes, the dreams, and the potential ruin of everyone you have ever loved. And that weight is heavier than any mountain and more vast than any desert. It is the true burden of this journey, and you carry it all the way to the other side of the world, to the end of the road, where a new set of challenges and a new kind of disappointment is waiting for you. For a year, your world has been defined by emptiness, by sand, by sky, by the slow, swaying rhythm of your camel. And then, one day, the emptiness ends. You come over a rise in the road, and you see it, a city. Not a dusty, mud-brick oasis town, but a true city. A sprawling, magnificent metropolis, the capital of an empire, a place like Antioch in the west, or the great jewel of the east, Chang'an. You have arrived at the other side of the world. As you pass through the gates, you are not filled with a sense of triumph. You are filled with a profound and overwhelming sense of being an alien. The culture shock is a physical blow, more disorienting than any sandstorm. The faces of the people are different. Their clothes are different, made of fabrics and in styles you have never seen. The very architecture of the buildings, with their curved roofs and intricate carvings, feels like it belongs to another planet. And the language is a river of sound that flows around you, and you do not understand a single drop. You try to ask for directions, to find the merchant's quarter, but your words are useless, meaningless grunts. You are illiterate here. You are mute. You are a ghost in a world that is not your own. The food is a mystery. You see strange vegetables in the market. You smell spices you cannot name. You see people eating things you do not recognize as food. You are a child again, my friend, helpless and ignorant, in a world that operates by a set of rules you have not yet learned. And now, you must complete the final, most important act of your journey. You must sell your silk. You find the merchant's quarter, a district of wealthy, powerful men who have been trading on this road their entire lives. They are not impressed by your journey. They are not interested in your stories of survival. They are businessmen, and they can smell your desperation from a mile away. The final negotiation is a slow, humiliating, and deeply frustrating dance. You do not speak the same language, so you must rely on a translator, a man whose loyalty is, shall we say, flexible. Is he translating your words accurately, or is he working for the merchant, helping to cheat you? You have no way of knowing. You just have to trust him. A wonderful position to be in. The merchant inspects your silk. He is a master of his trade. He finds flaws you never knew existed. A slight discoloration here, a fraying of the thread there. He points out the damage from the long journey, the faint smell of camel that still clings to the fabric. He dismisses your life's work with a wave of his hand. It is of inferior quality, he says, but out of the goodness of his heart, he will make you an offer. The price he offers is a fraction of what you had dreamed of. It is an insult, but you look at his cold, calculating eyes, and you know that he knows. You have no other choice. You did not travel for a year across the deadliest landscapes on earth to turn back now. You cannot take the silk home with you. So you accept. You watch as your precious bales, your entire world, are carried away into his warehouse, and in return, you are given a new pouch of coins. Gold this time. It is a fortune, more money than you have ever seen in your life. But it is not the fortune that will make you a king. It is just enough. And in that moment, after all the suffering, all the terror, all the loss, you do not feel a surge of triumph. There is no grand celebration. There is only a quiet, hollow, and deeply anticlimactic sense of relief. You have survived. You have not failed. That is your victory. You find a room in an inn. You eat a hot meal. You sleep for a week. But as your strength returns, a new, cold dread begins to creep into your soul. You look out the window of your room at the strange, alien city, and then you look to the west, back the way you came, and you realize your journey is only half over. You are not home. You are at the other side of the world, and now you must do it all again, in reverse. You must take your new fortune, and you must buy the goods of this land, spices, glass, exotic wares. You must find a new caravan master. You must hire new guards, and you must face the road again. You must face the taxmen. You must face the bandits. You must face the mountains. You must face the desert. You look back at the path you have just traveled, at the ghosts of the men you saw die, at the skeletons that mark the way, and you know, with a profound, soul-crushing certainty, that you have to walk back through that same hell all over again. This is the life of a Silk Road trader. It is not a single journey to riches. It is a relentless, brutal, and seemingly endless cycle of suffering and survival. An odyssey with no final shore. And it is this cycle, repeated by thousands of anonymous souls like you, that built the world we now know.
And so, the journey is over.
You can let go of the dust now. You can let the memory of the endless horizon fade into the quiet darkness of your room. The constant clanging symphony of the camel bells has finally fallen silent. You have survived. Come, let's look back at the road behind us. You have walked the path of ghosts. You sold your past for a future wrapped in fragile silk, and you carried that impossible weight across the world. You have felt the brutal, baking heat of the Taklamakan, the sea of death, and you have shivered in the bone-breaking cold of the dragon's spine. You have felt the agony of thirst, and you have been tricked by the cruel, shimmering hope of the mirage. You have heard the desert sing its mournful, demonic song in the dead of night. You have faced the company of wolves, the bandits in the passes, the cheats in the caravanserai, the petty tyrants at the checkpoints who bled your spirit, one silver coin at a time. You have survived the rot within, the fevers and the fluxes that turned your own body into a battlefield. You have lived with a paranoia so constant, so profound, that it became as natural as breathing. And you have made it to the other side of the world, only to be met with the crushing, anticlimactic reality of the final negotiation and the soul-deep dread of the long, brutal journey home. You have walked through a world where every step was a gamble, every stranger a potential threat, and every sunrise a victory that was not guaranteed. But here is the final thought to carry with you into the safety of your own bed. The world you live in now, a world of instant connections and effortless trade, was built on the anonymous bones of the path you just walked. Today, you can click a button, and an object from the other side of the planet will appear at your door in a matter of days. The spices in your kitchen, the tea in your cup, the very fabric of the clothes you wear. They travel to you now not on a river of sweat and blood, but in the belly of a cargo plane or the hold of a massive ship. They cross the same deserts, the same mountains, the same vast oceans that you just crossed, but they do it in hours, not years. That convenience, that quiet, everyday miracle of modern life was not a gift. It is a legacy. It was paid for, in full, by the suffering of the nameless, faceless men you just traveled with. The men who risked everything, who endured the unendurable, all to carry a single, fragile bale of silk from one end of the earth to the other. Their suffering, their sacrifice, their sheer, stubborn, human resilience. That is the invisible foundation upon which our global world is built. They walked so that one day we could fly. They endured a world where distance was a death sentence, so that we could live in a world where it is merely a number on a tracking page. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, in the quiet and in the peace, perhaps think of them, the ghosts of the Silk Road, the men who carried our world on their backs, one slow, dusty, dangerous step at a time. Sleep well.